If you do your job well, you should be rewarded. That's the story people are told. Work harder, be reliable, be efficient, take initiative, solve problems, and eventually, people will notice. You will be respected, trusted, valued, maybe promoted, maybe paid more, maybe given more influence. That is the promise. And on paper, it sounds reasonable, because in a fair system, competence should lead to better outcomes. But in a lot of workplaces, something else happens. The more competent you are, the more work gets pushed onto you. The more dependable you are, the more pressure you absorb. The more responsible you are, the less room you seem to have. You become the person people rely on when deadlines slip, when systems break, when others underperform, when managers need something fixed without noise. And slowly, what looked like trust starts to feel more like punishment. So what if being a good worker doesn't just make you valuable? What if it makes you easier to exploit? Because in many organizations, that is exactly what happens. Good workers are not always rewarded with freedom, control, or proportionate compensation. They are often rewarded with more responsibility, more visibility, more expectations, and more hidden punishment. The idea that good workers get rewarded is one of the most widely accepted stories in modern work culture. It sounds moral, it sounds meritocratic, it sounds efficient. Do good work and good things should follow. And sometimes they do. But that idea hides a deeper problem. Organizations do not always reward value in ways that feel fair to the person creating it. Sometimes they simply redirect more pressure toward the people least likely to drop it. That changes everything. Because once competence becomes visible, it stops being judged only as quality. It starts being judged as capacity. Can this person handle more? Can they fix what others missed? Can they clean up quietly? Can they absorb stress without drama? Can we trust them to rescue the deadline? And once those answers become yes, the worker enters a dangerous category. Not star employee, load-bearing employee. The person holding up more of the system than their role was supposed to carry. That is where the punishment begins. Not through open hostility, through dependency. In dysfunctional workplaces, good workers do not just do their own jobs well. They become the solution to everyone else's instability. They fix sloppy work. They fill in gaps. They compensate for weak management. They cover for low performers. They interpret vague instructions. They prevent embarrassment. They make broken teams look functional. And because they can do these things, the organization starts treating their competence like spare capacity. That is the trap. Competence is supposed to be evidence of value. Instead, it gets interpreted as permission to load more onto the same person. Not because the system is consciously evil every time, but because systems drift toward whatever seems easiest in the short term. And the easiest short-term move is almost always this: give the extra burden to the person least likely to fail. That is why good workers often feel punished for being strong. Their reward is not relief. It is accumulation. More tasks, more urgency, more ambiguity, more emotional labor, more responsibility without clean authority. The better they perform, the more the system trusts them to carry what should have been fixed structurally. So instead of being protected for their value, they are consumed by it. A lot of people think the most exploited workers are the weakest or most replaceable. Often it is the opposite. Reliable workers are deeply exploitable because they reduce uncertainty for everyone above them. Managers love people who do not require chasing. Teams love people who make them look organized. Companies love people who quietly convert chaos into output. And once someone builds that reputation, they start getting managed differently. They are trusted more, but also burdened more. They are respected more, but also interrupted more. They are included more, but also leaned on more. This is why many high-performing workers feel trapped inside their own competence. Their reliability stops belonging to them. It becomes infrastructure for the system. People stop asking whether something should belong to them. They ask whether they can handle it. And that difference is crucial. Because once the question shifts from fairness to capacity, overload becomes easy to justify. Of course we gave it to you. You're the best person for it. You always deliver. We knew we could count on you. What sounds like praise often functions as rationalized extraction. That is one of the most important truths in modern office life. Compliments and exploitation often arrive wearing the same clothes. Another reason good workers get punished is that a lot of real competence is invisible when it works properly. Preventing problems is less visible than solving public crises. Quiet consistency looks less dramatic than performative urgency. Doing things right the first time often gets less attention than loudly fixing something that should never have broken. That means many strong workers generate enormous value without creating the kind of spectacle organizations tend to reward clearly. They stabilize processes, protect quality, reduce friction, keep things moving. Notice mistakes early, shield managers from consequences. But because the damage never happens, their contribution looks normal, expected. And when competence becomes expected, gratitude fades. Soon the worker is not seen as exceptional. They are seen as the baseline. That is a dangerous transition, because once high performance becomes someone's normal, the organization stops treating it like extra value. It starts treating it like the minimum, and then it asks for more. This is how good workers get trapped. What once made them stand out becomes the standard they are forced to maintain, while the cost of maintaining it keeps rising. Their ceiling rises, their breathing room disappears, and all the while, they are told this is what excellence looks like. There is a point in many careers where recognition stops feeling like recognition. It starts feeling like access. People gain access to your time, access to your attention, access to your emotional regulation, access to your problem-solving ability, access to your willingness to care. And the more capable you are, the more access they want. This is especially common in offices where headcount is tight, deadlines are unrealistic, and management depends on hidden heroics to keep performance looking healthy. In those environments, good workers become shock absorbers. They take impact the organization should have faced directly. They absorb confusion, urgency, and under-resourcing, so the system can continue pretending it works. That is why the punishment is often hidden. It does not look like failure. It looks like being trusted, being needed, being depended on, being central. But underneath, it often means this. The organization has identified you as someone who can be stretched further than others. And if that stretching is not matched by authority, boundaries, compensation, or relief, then it is not a reward. It is extraction with flattering language around it. One of the cruelest parts of this dynamic is that the workers most likely to be punished are often the least likely to complain early. They are conscientious, self-regulating, high standard, proud of doing things well. They do not want to be seen as difficult. They do not want to let people down. They do not want to lower the quality. They do not want to become the problem. So they keep carrying and carrying and carrying until something changes, not always outwardly, sometimes internally. Their motivation hardens into resentment. Their pride turns into fatigue. Their initiative becomes caution. Their trust in management collapses. Their emotional distance grows. This is why good workers often do not fail dramatically. They withdraw strategically. They stop volunteering, stop caring beyond the minimum, stop solving problems they do not own, stop protecting systems that never protected them back. From the outside, this may look like disengagement. From the inside, it often feels like self-defense. Because once a worker realizes that excellence only increases extraction, pulling back becomes rational. Not lazy, rational. The lesson here is not that people should become careless, cynical, or weak. It is not that doing good work has no value. It does.
The real lesson is that competence without boundaries becomes exploitable. No,
Reliability without leverage becomes consumable, and pride without protection becomes a liability. That is the structural truth many workers learn too late. The workplace often says it wants excellence. What it often wants is dependable overextension. It wants people who will carry more than they should without forcing the system to confront why that burden exists. So the real question is not whether being a good worker matters. It does. The real question is whether the system around that worker knows how to reward competence without turning it into punishment. In many cases, it doesn't, because modern organizations are often built to consume reliability before they reward it fairly. And once you see that, a lot of workplace behavior starts to make sense. The trusted employee with no time, the high performer burning out quietly, the go-to person with no real power, the future leader drowning in unofficial responsibility. These are not always examples of success. Sometimes they are examples of beautifully packaged exploitation. Maybe that is the hardest part to admit. A lot of good workers were not rewarded for their competence. They were used for it. Not always maliciously, not always intentionally, but repeatedly. And over time, that changes how people relate to work itself. Because once someone learns that being dependable only makes them more absorbable, they stop experiencing effort as dignity. They start experiencing it as exposure. So yes, in many workplaces, good workers do get punished. Not because competence is bad, but because weak systems lean hardest on the people least likely to collapse publicly. And until organizations learn how to distinguish appreciation from extraction, a lot of their best people will keep paying a hidden price for being the ones who cared enough to hold everything together.